All right, so we're diving deep today into carbon capture, utilization, and storage, CCUS, in the EU.
Big topic.
It is. It really is. And, listeners, if you've got a stack of reports on your desk about this,
Which I'm sure you do.
yeah, probably right,
Yeah.
and you need to kind of get to the key insights quickly, that's what we're here for.
Absolutely.
And we're using this 2024 status report from the European Commission's Joint Research Center as our kind of guide.
It's a good one. And it's timely, too, because the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, just came out and said,
Right.
despite all the impressive growth we've seen in CCUS,
Yeah.
we're still not deploying it fast enough to hit those climate targets.
So the pressure's on.
For sure.
So can you just remind us, for those who maybe haven't listened to our deep dives before, what CCUS actually is and why it's so crucial?
Yeah, so it stands for carbon capture, utilization, and storage, and it really is a multi-stage process.
Okay.
Involves capturing the CO2 emissions either from industrial sources or even from the atmosphere.
Right.
Then it's transported, and then you can either use it, that's the utilization part, you can use it to create valuable products, or you can store it permanently underground, and that's the storage part.
Gotcha.
And it's crucial because it helps us tackle emissions from industries that are really hard to decarbonize, like cement, steel, chemicals, that kind of thing.
So, the backbone of modern industry.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so what's the state of CCUS right now, globally?
I mean, globally, it's booming, Project development more than doubled in 2023.
Wow.
And we've got over 40 operational CCS facilities that are already capturing nearly 50 million tons of CO2 per year.
That's a lot.
It is, yeah.
So where does Europe stand in all of this?
Well, the U.S. is actually leading right now in terms of operational facilities, but the EU is gaining traction.
Okay.
Definitely seeing a shift in focus from power generation to decarbonizing these heavy industries we talked about.
Right. Yeah.
New policies like the EU's got this Net Zero Industry Act that are setting targets for CCUS capacity. And there's also strong research and development happening both with public funding and private.
So they're taking it seriously?
Yeah, I think so.
Are there any specific countries, within the EU or companies that are kind of leading the charge on this?
Yeah, you're seeing France, Germany, and the Netherlands kind of at the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
And big companies like Air Liquide and Lin, they're playing key roles.
Okay, cool. So let's kind of break down the different stages of CCUS.
Okay.
Starting with capture.
Right.
What are the main technologies in play there?
So you can almost think of it in terms of generations.
Okay.
So first generation technologies, things like amine-based solvents, these are already commercially available, they're reliable.
Right.
Then you've got second generation technologies that are in development now.
Okay.
And they're promising cost reductions, better efficiency.
As always. Right.
Yeah, and then you've got even more futuristic third generation technologies that could really be revolutionary.
Cool. Now, the report highlighted direct air capture, DAC, and bioenergy with carbon capture and storage.
BECCS.
BECCS.
That's a mouthful.
Can you kind of unpack those a bit?
Yeah.
Explain the differences and what are the challenges for each?
Sure. So DACC, direct air capture, that's capturing CO2 directly from the air.
Like a giant vacuum cleaner.
Well, sort of, but imagine trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Oh, okay.
Because it's very low concentration in the air.
Oh,
so
yeah.
separating it is tricky. It's complex and it's expensive.
Okay.
But BECCS, bioenergy with carbon capture and storage, that's capturing CO2 from bioenergy plants.
Okay.
So it's a more established approach. We've been doing that for a while.
Right.
But it's got challenges in terms of scaling up to meet global demand.
Okay, so different approaches, but they both have their pluses and minuses.
Exactly.
What about transport? So we've captured it. How are we moving this stuff around?
Well, I'm guessing you can guess the main way.
Pipelines.
Pipelines, yeah. They're dominant at the moment, but you are seeing shipping emerge as a viable option, especially for offshore storage.
Okay.
And there's this exciting idea of repurposing existing oil and gas infrastructure for CO2 transport.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, using what we already have could cut costs significantly.
Makes sense. Okay, so last step, storage.
Wow.
Where does all this captured CO2 actually end up?
Well, the main options are geological storage.
Oh,
So that's in saline formations.
okay.
And depleted oil and gas fields. These places can safely hold CO2 for millions of years.
Wow, right.
And then there's another method, mineral carbonation in basalt.
What is that?
So you inject CO2 into these basalt rock formations.
Uh-huh.
It reacts with the minerals, and it basically turns into stone.
Oh, wow. So it's like it's locked away forever.
Yeah, permanently.
The report mentioned a project in Iceland using this.
The Orca project, yeah, and that's a
Okay.
good example.
Yeah.
It shows how mineral carbonation could be a permanent and a cheaper storage solution. But whatever method you're using, careful site selection, monitoring, long-term management, these are all crucial
Of course. Yeah.
for safe and effective storage.
It's not just about burying it and forgetting about it.
No, not at all.
Okay, so we've captured the CO2, we've moved it, we've stored it safely.
Right.
What about utilization?
Ah.
What are we actually doing with this captured CO2?
This is where it gets really interesting, I think. So we can actually use the captured CO2 to make valuable products.
Okay.
So fuels, chemicals, building materials, all sorts of things.
So we're turning a problem into a resource.
Exactly. That's the idea.
That's pretty neat. What are some of the hurdles facing this? This sounds almost too good to be true.
Well, cost is a big one, right?
That's-
CO2-based products are often more expensive than the traditional alternatives.
Right.
And also, energy efficiency is crucial. So if you're using dirty energy to create these products,
Yeah.
then you're not really getting a net climate benefit.
Right. So there's a lot to consider in terms of making it truly sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually where the next part of our deep dive comes in.
Oh, okay.
We're going to delve into the business side of CCUS
All right.
and how companies are adapting to this evolving landscape.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so we've talked about capturing the CO2, transporting it, storing it safely.
The whole process.
Yeah. Now let's get into the business side of this.
Okay.
How is this industry adapting to, this new world of CCUS?
Well, it's really interesting. We're seeing this kind of evolution happening.
Okay.
The traditional model where you had one company doing it all.
Yeah.
From capture to storage, that's changing.
Right.
It's giving way to a more specialized approach.
So instead of like one company being a jack of all trades, it's more like you've got different players, they focus on their area.
Exactly. It's like a relay race.
Exactly.
Each runner has their specialty, right?
Uh-huh.
So this allows companies to focus on what they're good at, whether it's developing those capture technologies, figuring out the logistics of transport, or finding the best storage sites.
Okay, that makes sense. And the report also talks about the rise of these CCUS hubs.
Yes.
What are they and why are they becoming so important?
So imagine you've got like a cluster of industrial sites,
Okay.
and they're sharing CCUS infrastructure.
Okay.
That's basically a CCUS hub.
Gotcha.
And it's gaining traction, especially in places like Europe where storage often happens offshore.
Right.
And by pooling resources, these hubs can really bring costs down, make things more efficient.
So win-win. Good for the environment, good for business.
Absolutely.
Are there any examples of these hubs in action already?
Oh, yeah, definitely. The Northern Lights project in Norway, that's a great example. So they're capturing CO2 from different industries,
Okay.
transporting it via pipeline to an offshore storage site.
Cool.
And you're seeing that these hubs, they attract all sorts of players, not just those big energy companies.
Oh, really? So like startups, venture capitalists, that kind of thing?
Exactly. There's a lot of venture capital going into CCUS, especially in the U.S.
Okay.
The EU is maybe lagging a bit behind in that entrepreneurial side of things.
Right.
But there's definitely growing recognition of the opportunities here.
So potential for even more growth and innovation.
Yeah, I think so.
What's driving this move towards specialization and this collaboration, this hub model?
I think part of it is just the complexity of CCUS.
Oh,
It
yeah.
involves engineering, geology, chemistry, even finance.
It's a lot.
It is. It's really hard for one company to be an expert in everything.
And the sheer scale of the climate challenge probably plays a role too, right?
Huge role, yeah. To really deploy this on a global scale,
Yeah.
we need to pool expertise, resources, work together.
You can't do it alone.
No, not at all.
Interesting how this collaboration idea, it's happening in other areas of climate action too.
Yeah, you see it everywhere.
So what role does government policy play in all of this, in shaping this new landscape?
Oh, it's crucial.
Yeah.
Things like carbon pricing, tax incentives, investing in infrastructure.
Yeah.
That can create the right environment for CCUS to thrive.
So incentivize innovation, attract investment.
Exactly.
Okay, but even with all of this,
Right.
what are some of the main challenges that remain that the industry is still facing?
I mean, cost is still a big one.
Of course.
It's still relatively expensive compared to fossil fuels.
Right.
And we do expect that to change as things mature.
Right, the technology gets better.
Yeah, but it's still a hurdle.
The report also talked about public acceptance.
Right. People might be concerned about storage.
Yeah.
even if the experts say it's safe. So clear communication is key there.
Absolutely.
Building trust.
It's not just about the science. It's about bringing the public along.
Yeah, for sure.
What about, the infrastructure like pipelines, shipping routes, storage sites?
Yeah, we need that to scale up.
Yeah.
And that's where those hubs can be a really helpful centralizing thing.
Streamlining it all.
Right.
Okay, so we've got the tech, the business models are evolving, governments are stepping up. What's next for CCUS in the EU?
Well, that's a great question. And that's where we go next. We're going to look at the bigger picture. What does this mean for Europe's role in the world?
Okay.
And for the fight against climate change?
All right, I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
We've gone deep into the technology, the business models, the challenges, everything.
The whole CCUS landscape.
Yeah, now I want to kind of zoom out, look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
What does this all mean for Europe?
Well,
Their role in the world, their fight against climate change, all of that.
Well, I think it's important to remember that the whole global landscape is changing, right?
Yeah, with the shift to a low-carbon economy.
Exactly. And CCUS is becoming a key battleground,
Oh, interesting.
Countries that figure this out, they stand to gain a lot.
So it's not just about saving the planet. It's about economic power, too.
Oh, absolutely. Leadership in the 21st century, it's all connected.
So where does Europe fit into all of this?
Well, the report highlights Europe's strengths, research, innovation. But they need to turn those strengths into action, real projects.
Yeah, ideas are great, but you got to actually, do it.
Exactly. Execution is key.
So what needs to happen for Europe to really make this happen, to be a leader?
I mean, they got to tackle those challenges we talked about, right?
Cost, public acceptance, infrastructure.
All of that. It's complex, but they're working on it.
And they got to move fast.
Yeah.
Because other players, the U.S., China, they're not standing still.
No, it's a global race.
The report also mentioned something I thought was interesting, this idea of resource dependency.
Oh, right.
So if Europe does become a CCUS powerhouse, could they become reliant on other countries for materials, for the technology?
Yeah, it's a valid point. We've seen it happen before.
Yeah, with other technology.
Where the supply chain becomes a strategic issue.
Exactly.
So the report stresses careful planning, making sure those supply chains are secure, sustainable.
Because it's not just about the tech itself, it's the whole ecosystem.
Exactly. Everything's connected.
This has been really fascinating. I feel like we've gone really deep.
We have.
But I want to kind of bring it back to our listener for a second.
Okay.
Why should they care about all of this? What's the takeaway for their life, their work, their future?
Well, I think, first of all, as global citizens, we all have a stake in solving climate change.
Right.
And this is a tool to help us do that.
But it's not just about, being altruistic. Right?
No, there are benefits for Europeans, too.
Like what?
Jobs, economic growth, energy security.
Because we're relying less on fossil fuels. And it could make Europe a leader in clean technologies.
Absolutely. So, yeah, whether you're an entrepreneur, a policymaker, an investor, just a concerned citizen, CCUS is something to pay attention to.
It really is. Well, I think we've given our listeners a really solid understanding of CCUS in the EU.
I hope so.
And I want to encourage everyone to keep learning, keep exploring.
Yeah, great resources out there.
Like the Global CCS Institute, the International Energy Agency. Check them out.
And as you learn, think about this. What role will Europe play in all of this? And what will that mean for the future of our planet?
That's a great question to leave everyone with. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into CCUS in the EU.
Thanks for having me.